The apartment was silent except the constant hum of refrigerator. Ryan placed the food on the dining table as she glanced up at her older brother, who was sitting in the living room using his phone. Ryan, Oppa, food is ready, she said, trying to keep her voice as cheerful as she could. Jungkook didn't even glance up from the screen. Jungkook, I'm not hungry, he grunted, making her sigh in sadness, but she didn't give up. Ryan, Oppa, you haven't eaten since morning. Please, just a little. I made your favorite. She said, glancing at the kimchi stew. Jungkook sighed and spoke. His sharp voice cut through the silence and her heart like a sharp blade. Jungkook, Ryan, I already said I am not hungry. Didn't you listen? His gaze on her was angry and intense as she swallowed her tears back and smiled in pain. Oh, okay, no problem. I just thought you could. Jungkook, you are so annoying, Ryan. I'm just trying to be alone for some time. He hastily got up from the couch and went to his room. His brows cooked in together in frustration. Ryan's gaze followed him until he had disappeared in his room. She sighed and removed her apron before sitting down on the chair to have her dinner. She's 17-year-old high school girl and lives with her older brother who is a doctor. Their parents lives in Busan, but she had to stay with Jungkook in Seoul for good studies. Her parents come every second weekend to meet them. She ate her dinner quietly, swallowing every bite painfully, her eyes stinging with tears as she tried to ignore the burning pain in her chest. Back in her room, Vian sat on her bed under the sheets with her laptop on her lap as she watched a particular K drama playing over the screen. But her mind wasn't on the drama as she glanced at the photo frame placed on the side table. It was a picture of her and Jungkook 7 years back. He was 17 years old at that time. What happened to the old Jungkook? She muttered under her breath, tracing lines over the edge of the frame. He had changed completely. He was never like this, never the one to ignore her and scold her. But over the past few years, he had become distant with her and gives her a cold shoulder. Never once in her life, Vian hadn't imagined this drastic turn that had taken over them. Now he scolds her for every small mistake she do, never looks at her with care like he used to, and makes her feel like that her existence is a mistake itself. She can't tell anyone about it, knowing it will worsen the. Their parents although notices the fights between them, but they always laughed it off, thinking it's just sibling things. Well, at first Vian used to think the same, that siblings fight a lot and it's same in their case. But as time passed, she started understanding that even its sibling fight they care for each other. And Jungkook doesn't show any care for her. She let out a shaky breath, a tear tracing down her cheeks as she wiped it off with the back of her hand. I don't know what I did. I just want my old brother back. She hugged the photo frame, clutching it closer to her chest, letting her tears fall freely as she cried hard. Her sobs echoed in the empty room, her body shaking violently. School isn't much of a help either. She had three friends. Turned out they were snake and turned their backs on her when she needed them the most. Now she is left alone. They don't bully her particularly but doesn't talk with her either. When she reaches out to talk with them, they don't show any interest, turns her down, ignore her, and the worst, makes fun of her and laughed about it. She has stopped caring about it too. But not caring about how her brother treated her felt too much. She sighed heavily, trying to steady her breath. In his room, Jungkook was still scrolling through his phone. Though his eyes were glued to the screen, his mind kept wandering back to his sister. Leave her, Jungkook, she is grown up now. You can't always babysit her, he said to himself, shrugging away all the thoughts. Jungkook always had been a brilliant child, his parents' favorite, ace of the school, loved by every teacher, and always praised by his parents. But since Ryan was born, their whole attention had shifted to her. He shrugged it off at first and pampered the baby along with them, but as time passed, he started noticing how his parents started neglecting him for her. Flashback. Jungkook sat on his desk, hunched over the textbooks, making his assignment. A colorful pencil placed over his right ear. His brows furrowed in concentration. His tongue peeked out just slightly as he wrote the title on the page. Just then his room door was opened and his mother came in. It was almost 7 p.m. She smiled at him warmly and came towards him. Cookie, me and Appa are going out for some time. Can you look after Ryan? Jungkook, Mom, I'm working. I still have lots of homework left. Of course, school was tough for a 13-year-old like him, especially when he was a topper. Mrs. John. Jungkook, it's just a matter of 2-3 hours. Please take care of her. Okay, we are going by. She kissed his cheeks before he could say anything and left the room. Jungkook too followed her downstairs and saw them, along with Ryan, who was sitting in her crib silently observing everything. Mr. John, take care of her, okay? Jungkook can't help but nodded as they left. He looked at Ryan, who gave him a cheeky smile, boiling his anger, but he kept his cool. She's just a kid, it's okay. He muttered under his breath, reminding himself, and walked over to her, took her out of her crib. Jungkook, can you sit silent for the time I'm studying? Please. Ryan giggled, melting his heart instantly. All anger and frustration from earlier vanishing away from his face as he sat beside her. See, Oppa got a lot of work. If you don't do that, Oma, Appa, and the pet teachers will scold me. Ryan giggled again, this time nodding, making him smile warmly at her. Jungkook, I will get you chocolate if you stay silent, and we can also play later. Deal? He held out his hand and she happily shook it with hers, clearly getting what she means. With that, he started his work and completed the assignment. Jungkook placed his assignment on the bedside table so he could remember to carry it tomorrow to school. After nearly 2 hours, he was done with his homework as he stretched out his arms and got up from the chair to look at Ryan. But to his surprise, she had his assignment torn in her hands. He rushed towards her and took the torn pieces in his hands. Ryan, what the hell you did? He yelled, making her flinch as she started to cry. At the same time, the room's door opened and his parents rushed inside, looking at Ryan and then at him. Mrs. John, Jungkook, what happened? Why is she crying? Jungkook, Mom, I made my assignment and she tore it. I have to submit it tomorrow. He said, his voice wavering slightly as his eyes brimmed with tears, imagining all the possible things that can happen. Mr. Jung, it's okay, Jungkook, you can make it again. She's young and she don't know. Just how could they expect him to make it again? Jungkook looked at him bewildered, the shock evident on his face. Appa, it took me almost 2 hours to complete it. Mrs. John, don't be childish, Jungkook. She's a kid and she don't know. You shouldn't have put it there and kept it to yourself instead. End of flashback. Jungkook blinked multiple times, remembering the incident very well. How they just blamed him instead of offering him help that time. After a few days, Ryan plopped herself on the couch as soon as she arrived at home after school. Damn. She removed her shoes and leaned back, exhaling out deeply. School was going really tough, especially when she had no one to share it about. No friends. Even talking to parents felt stupid at this point. They had expectations from her that she can't broke. Don't you think you should be a little responsible? Jungkook's voice came out, and Ryan turned over her shoulder to find him in kitchen. He had a day off. How stupid of her to forget. Ryan, what happened? Jungkook, your books are scattered in your room. Go and assemble them. I am not your servant, that you will leave them like this. He said his tone harsh than most of the time he had spoken to her. Ryan, oh, I will do it. Jungkook, do it now. His cold voice left no room for argument, but still she spoke. Ryan, Oppa, why are you so harsh and cold? Do you hate me? Ryan, how can I know? Jungkook, oh, exactly. How can you know? You are just a kid. And I'm the older sibling who have to know everything. Go and arrange the books. Don't ask more questions. She scoffed and went to her room. Ryan stood on the stool as she placed the books in her cabinet. Suddenly, she felt dizzy. Her eyes went blurry, and a book dropped down on the floor. with a loud sound. She held the door of the cabinet to balance herself and closed her eyes to stop the dizziness. What the hell? Jungkook asked, entering in her room. What happened now? Why? Nothing. It just I fell. Jungkook rolled his eyes. At least try not to break things when you are working. And with that, he left the room. Wyan waited on the floor till the dizziness had faded away. Once she felt fine, she got up. Wyan, what the heck is happening to me? It's been 2 days now. She had been feeling like this from last 2 days, and every succeeding day, it's going worse. The burning sensation in her stomach isn't helping either, as she tried to ignore it and continued her work. After 1 week, nothing changed, but her condition started getting worse. She often vomited, felt burning sensation in her stomach. The dizziness never go away, but she kept it to herself, knowing Jungkook won't care anyways. Right now, she was in kitchen preparing coffee when she felt a sharp pain in her chest. Her eyes widened, the coffee cup left her hand, falling on the floor with a loud sound, scattering into pieces with the coffee splattering over the floor and kitchen counter. Her vision became blurry, accompanied by tears as she fell on her knees due to lack of energy. The world around her spun before she fell on the ground. The last thing she heard was faint sound of the Jungkook rushing into the kitchen, his worried voice echoing in her mind. He was worried. Ryan opened her eyes and blinked multiple times to adjust the brightness of the room. She looked around to find herself in a hospital room with Jungkook sitting beside her with his hand in his hand. Feeling her movement, she looked up. Jungkook, oh, Ryan, you are up. How are you feeling now? Wait, don't speak. I will call the doctor. Ryan looked at him in shock. He looked worried. It was the last thing she had imagined. He ran out, coming back with another doctor. Basically, they had a rule in a hospital that the doctors working here can't treat their own family members. Other doctors have to do it. That's why Jungkook had to call in another doctor. Doctor, don't worry, Mr. Jeon. She will recover with proper care and close monitoring. It was a gastric problem. Jungkook nodded while the doctor told him the medicine Ryan needs to take and left. The doctor told him she needed to rest and recover, but Ryan was more concerned with one thing Jungkook's sudden shift. I don't get it. Why do you suddenly care? Jungkook looked at her, his face filled with regret. He took her hand gently, his voice steady but full of emotions. Jungkook, I've been an idiot. I was angry at you because our parents started focusing on you more. She turned her head to look away, the hurt still lingering in her chest. You can't just apologize and expect me to forget everything. It's not that simple. Jungkook, I know, he whispered, his voice full of guilt. But I will prove it to you. I'll show you that I care. I will make it right. Ryan remained silent, unsure of what to say. She didn't forgive him just yet. But as the days passed, she started to see the change in him. Jungkook stayed by her side, checking on her every day, taking care of her like he used to. The same brother who had ignored her was now the one who wouldn't leave her alone. After a few days, the days that followed, Ryan's hospital discharge were a strange mix of warmth and tension. Jungkook had taken time off work, dedicating himself entirely to her recovery. Ryan wasn't talking to him at all. He tried his best to get some response from her. Here, eat this. Ryan, I'm not hungry. Ryan murmured, turning her head away. Jungkook, Ryan, you need to eat. He insisted, his tone pleading. The medicine won't work on an empty stomach. Ryan, I said I'm not hungry, Oppa. She replied curtly, pushing the tray away. Jungkook didn't argue. Instead, he sighed and sat on the edge of her bed. Fine, he said quietly. The same night, unable to sleep, Wayan decided to get some water. As she passed by Jungkook's room, she noticed the door was slightly ajar. The soft sound of muffled sobs spilling out, curiosity and concern, got the best of her. She peeked inside. Her chest tightened. She had never seen him like this. Wayan, Oppa, she called softly, stepping into the
Jungkook's
room.
head shot up, his tear-streaked face filled with surprise and embarrassment. He quickly wiped his eyes, trying to compose himself. Wayan, what are you doing up? You should be resting. She ignored his question, her voice trembling. Why are you crying? He shook his head, avoiding her gaze. It's nothing. Go back to bed. Wayan, no, it's not nothing. She insisted, sitting beside him. Tell me. He hesitated before speaking, his voice barely above a whisper. Jungkook, I'm scared, Wayan. I keep thinking about what could have happened to you, how close I came to losing you, and it's my fault. I was too blinded by my own feelings to see how much you were struggling. I pushed you away when I should have been protecting you. Jungkook, I don't deserve your forgiveness. Jungkook continued, his voice cracking, but I will keep trying, Wayan. I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it up to you, if I have to. Wayan stared at him. Her emotions a swirling mix of anger, sadness, and pity. For so long, she had yearned for an apology, and now that she had it, Oppa, she said gently, reaching for his hand. I'm tired of being angry at you. It's exhausting. I miss you. The old you. The brother who used to protect me, the who used to make me laugh. I will forgive you. His eyes widened, his breath hitching. Jungkook let out a shaky breath, a mix of relief and emotion overwhelming him. He pulled her into a hug, holding her tightly as if she might disappear. Jungkook, thank you. He whispered, his voice choked with emotion. I promise, Ryan, I will never take you for granted again. It I will always be here for you. Ryan buried her face in his shoulder, her tears soaking his shirt. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of peace, a small glimmer of hope that their relationship could be rebuilt stronger than before.